Hi, and welcome back to Just Ask the Question. I'm your host, Brian Cameron. With me today, our old friend and international expert on international relations, Joel Rubin, former member of the Obama administration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
that's right. Hey, I remember a few things.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Can you say it?
Yes, I can, but you say it better than I. It rolls off your tongue. I'll trip on the second or third word. So listen, Joe, I brought you back here for a big reason. You're my go-to guy on some of this stuff, and you do know. So it's not like you're my go-to guy and you don't know. Uh, that's a Republican thing. But anyway, let's go with. I had a question. Marjorie Taylor Greene this week said that she believes that Donald Trump is considering exercising the nuclear option in Iran. Um, and there's a couple of places to go with that. You also heard Donald Trump this week saying
hell very quickly.
Hell very quickly. But Donald Trump has said repeatedly that they can't have a nuclear weapon, but we could use a nuclear weapon on them. That hypocrisy aside, he also said that he likes North Korea. After all, they have 57 nuclear weapons. So on the one hand, he's saying Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but if I'm Iran, what I'm hearing is if I have a nuclear weapon, suddenly I'm a friend. So I mean, this is a tough issue.
Brian, you're doing the impossible. You're looking for consistency and logic in our foreign policy planning, and man, you're going to be looking for a long time under that rug. Oh my God. Just a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, in the big picture, nuclear war is very bad.
No shit.
Okay. We dropped a couple. I mean, let's just put that out there. If someone with the capacity to nuke someone else does it, it's quite likely it will trigger a nuclear retaliation. It's quite likely that it could lead to a nuclear winter. There have been studies done about India and Pakistan, for example. If they were to have a nuclear exchange with about 100 weapons unleashed at each other, we would have a nuclear winter and at least 1 billion people would die. Okay, so that's like the sort of stakes of unleashing a nuclear weapon. Because if we were to nuke a country, let's just say Iran, it's quite possible the censors from Russia might pick something up that they're not happy about. It's quite likely that they would respond. There's a possibility that China would get involved. Who knows? But beyond that, you're killing tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, likely multiple millions of people inside of Iran, turning as well that entire zone into a toxic a wasteland, which of course also means
ruin the oil.
You'll ruin the oil, which is the sort of like the one little light that I hold out there as to like why we wouldn't do it. But Trump, when it comes to nuclear weapons, is all over the map. He has not cut a nuclear arms reduction treaty or deal with Russia. He let it expire, the New START agreement, back in late 2018, 2019. He met with North Korea, never got a nuclear deal from then. They continue to have more nuclear weapons. He says things are great, and they continue to build. He ripped up a nuclear deal with Iran, as we all know, the JCPOA, and we're still in this state of suspended animation where we have literally no policy truly on what to do about their nuclear program, and he's thrashing about with the war. So there's no nuclear policy that I can discern. Now, if we were to unleash a nuclear weapon on Iran, not only would that violate international law, not only would that cause mass casualty, not only would that terminate the ability to have oil, not only would that possibly bring against us a nuclear exchange, it would be incredibly outside the scope of anything that I believe the administration is considering. I got to tell you that. I just don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene is right on that. For all the reasons I laid out, there is a level of Donald Trump of deep fear of nuclear Armageddon. He talks about that a lot. That's the one other thing that holds out hope for me, is that he's talked about this. It's not like he's doing anything about it to prevent it in these deals like we described, but he talks about it a lot. And so I just think I think it's in a world of crazy, I think that's even crazier than crazy.
Well,
But
he
the
talks.
repercussions are huge.
Yes, and he talks about a lot of things a lot. Remember back on July 7th, and I know where Green got some of her supposition on this, was he said he would end their civilization overnight.
Right. That's
and
right.
that certainly,
unacceptable.
Yeah, that indicates the use of a weapon of mass destruction, the likes of which, as he said, we haven't seen since the end of World War II. So
Can I add
go ahead.
one more thing? I'm sorry. Like for the listeners, I think it's really important that folks understand that truly in the United States there is literally, and this is what should keep us up at night, there's only one human being that has the authority to launch a nuclear weapon, and that's the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States. It's called sole authority. And there's literally zero control around that. The only way to prevent that from happening would be to impeach and remove him from office or do the 25th. Like, that stuff is too slow. It's not happening. There is no law preventing the president from launching a nuclear strike right now.
Yeah.
And it would not require a defensive response. Yeah. So that's a massive gap in the nuclear policy world. And I've worked in that for a number of years. This is something people are always fretting about. And I'll just tell you one tiny anecdote. I did a prep session for the incoming head of Strategic Command, which controls the nuclear weapons, about a decade ago. I was at the Pentagon. He was going for Senate confirmation. I was brought in as the Democratic voice, like we call it a murder board. So I was like the Democratic senator asking questions. And I drilled down into this. I'm like, would you stop the president if he chose to launch nuclear weapons? I asked every which way I could. And bottom line is, I walked out of there realizing nothing could stop him if he wants to do it.
Frightening again. And for those who do not understand, let's see, we could go to the movie War Games. We could talk to you about how global thermal nuclear war can start from just a regional conflict. We could talk about, well, mutually assured destruction policy, which we've had in the United States with since the Cold War with the former Soviet Union. And how about the day after? You referred to a nuclear winter. That was a term that was coined after the day after was aired on television in the 80s, showing exactly what would happen the day after a nuclear attack, massive nuclear attack. And it was Carl Sagan who coined that term and said, actually, what would happen would be far worse than what you see on television, and which was pretty damn bad.
Pretty damn bad.
And that, I mean, kind of brought people's focus into, I feel like it focused our understanding of the conflagration and how bad it could be. I don't think we have that understanding of it today. The mutually assured destruction policy is not on anyone's mind anymore. A nuclear winter, well, people don't believe in global warming and think that chemtrails have caused, problems and man didn't land on the moon. So it feels like we've lost not only knowledge, but more importantly, the ability to make a decision that'll keep us from ending civilization.
Nuclear policy, nuclear weapons in the structure of the American national security apparatus is always kind of like at the risk of offending some folks in the audience, it's like the ugly stepchild back in the corner there. Sorry, folks, but it's the one in the corner that nobody cares about. Nobody wants to talk about it.
We don't think about it.
We call those people the nukes, like people working in our nukes, like it's dork central, it's PhDs in physics and then the policy nerds with their lawyering and international convenings and meetings. All of that is true, but it's like forgotten. And that's dangerous as hell when it is tossed out to the side and no longer integrated into the way people think. That was the case for terrorism for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then you saw what happened when a certain Osama bin Laden organized right under our noses and committed the atrocity of September 11th. And so we at our own peril are ignoring this, and Congress is ignoring it. There's no real nuclear negotiations. The International Test Ban Treaty is laying fallow that we're not a member of. We are looking at China amping up their nuclear weapons capabilities and assets as we speak. The U.S. and Russia together have about 90% of the world's nuclear weapons, but China is really racing up there, 400 or 500. We have in the 5,000 to 6,000 range, Russia a little more. But it's a real serious deal, and it's incredibly expensive as well. And the nuclear infrastructure, I think it's worth mentioning, costs us in estimates about $100 billion a year to maintain. So it's like $100 billion endless mortgage, not a 30-year, not a 50-year, 100-year
Yeah, yeah.
mortgage at $100 billion a year for weapons that literally everybody agrees should never be used. Could we do something there with that money? I think so.
Yeah.
So there's a lot wrapped into this. It's very important stuff.
Well, and the ignorance of the issue goes back even to the Ronald Reagan era. There's a book that Robert Scheer wrote that I just pulled off my shelf that I remember very well. It's called With Enough Shovels, and it's called Reagan, Bush, and Nuclear War. T.K. Jones, the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Strategic and Theater Nuclear Forces, said, quote, dig a hole, cover it with a couple of doors, and then throw 3 feet of dirt on top. It's the dirt that does it. If there are enough shovels to go around, everybody's going to make it after a nuclear war. That was a best-selling book in the 1980s. And I don't think that
That's great.
Yeah, it's frightening to me that we've been that ignorant of how bad it can be for so long. And luckily, we haven't managed to blow ourselves up. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether you believe that she's overstating the issue, I'll give her this much. She's bringing into focus an issue that we need to discuss
100%,
because the man is dangerous. So,
and I do think you said something earlier about the sort of the hypocrisy of it, the policy where we would nuke a country to end nuclear weapons, right? Like it's like, I'm beating you down so you can be nice to me. I'm going to punch you in the face 100 times so you can look pretty. Like it just is incoherent at its core. It's so Trumpian, and it also, I got to say, completely undermines the goal, right? So like if the goal is to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons and build a coalition of support for that, you can't start threatening nuclear war. Everybody's going to say, whoa, maybe they should be like North Korea. Maybe they should get nuclear weapons.
Yeah,
and then you'll be kissing their ass rather than threatening them.
Yes. I mean, that's the lesson. If I'm in Iran, that's a lesson I'm taking away from it. I hadn't planned to build a nuclear weapon, but look, you let North Korea hang around and they're worse than we are. Hey, maybe we'll get one and we'll be your friend. Exactly. So, I mean, so with that said, the other thing the hypocrisy, the double dealing, the fact that you can't figure shit out from one day to the next with this guy has aided the deterioration of our relationship with our allies. And I mean, you know this better than most. What is the threat and how bad is it that we have what is in essence, I would say in some cases, no allies anymore, or very well, except for Israel and maybe Venezuela. That's
a subnational ally. So
that's Trump's ally.
I'll do what a lot of people.
Venezuela, they're beautiful people. I went in, I took it over. I get all the money. It's great. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm sure they're really thrilled with our ability to help them recover from those earthquakes. You know, we're really doing great.
Well, God, all right. To that point, before you go any further, here's the thing. UNICEF, the World Relief Fund are all asking for everyone to donate just $20 to raise $200 million to rebuild Venezuela. For the average American, that is about 0.002% of families. For more or less, it's 0.002% of their annual income. Not a lot to ask. But what is $200 million 0.002% of? $1 trillion. So guess who could bail out Venezuela with what amounts to $20 from his wallet? That would be Elon Musk.
That would be the guy who destroyed the agency called USAID that would have gone down to Venezuela to bail it out and fix the country.
Yes, indeed. So, all right. So here we have deteriorating relationship with our allies. How bad is it?
So I'm going to do a bad Washington trick, which is sort of name drop or humble brag, right? Well, I was at a conference in Aspen. I was at a conference in Aspen about a month ago called the Aspen Security Forum. It was very nice, I have to say. Aspen is lovely. Never been there before.
Yeah, it is.
Fancy. It's very, very high level. But boy, the people there, man. So this is like a murderer's row of the establishment's establishment, okay? And so a lot of people who are pro-alliance within that and pro-NATO and all of that, a lot of Europeans there. And holy crap, the conversations were so bad about how they viewed the relationship with America. I mean, across the board, it was like, it was the one consistent theme of this conference was that we are getting isolated fast. And I'll just give a couple of practical examples, right? Let's think Europe. Well, Greenland. So Denmark, the Danish ambassador was there. Denmark lost 43 soldiers in Afghanistan. It's a higher percent of death per capita than the American military lost in Afghanistan. And Trump basically said they've never given us anything. Okay, so they're offended and upset. Now he wants to take Greenland. And the guy who was speaking on behalf of the administration, their Arctic envoy, basically is like, essentially like, let's get Greenland. That was who was speaking for the administration. So NATO's upset. Okay, let's go to Asia. Our Asian allies are wondering, what is our plan? What are we trying to do related to China? They don't know. They're literally, there is no clarity.
Well, we decided not to back South Korea.
Not back in South Korea, not back in Taiwan, the longtime ally. When it comes to NATO, we've pulled out of funding Ukraine. The good news in the Ukraine war story is that Orban lost in Hungary. And what that meant is that the one negative vote at European Union meetings to finance the Ukrainians disappeared. So now money is flowing from Europe into Ukraine, but not from us. The list goes on and on and on. Our allies are confused. They're baffled. They feel like this is irreparable. And last thing I'll say is
that's important.
They juxtaposed it from Trump 1.0 to 2.0. And they said with Trump 1.0, we got it. It was disruptive. We heard the problems and all. And then Biden came in and we kind of like straightened things out a little. But this 2.0 is sort of like unforgivable. And this means the American people, this is where they are. And the tariffs you add to that, and the Canadians, basically him telling the bridge, no, we're not going to attend a bridge cutting ceremony, which helps Michigan. Like it goes. And so the attitude globally that I'm seeing is that they are now basically looking at the United States as, you voted for him, and you really did vote for him this time. Like, whatever the debate was before, you saw what it was, you saw the appetizer, and you said you wanted seconds. And that is a problem. And so I think the world is it's like in the stock market, they say, like when there's a sense of what a company's valuation is going to be. It's baked into the market already. So you may not see certain changes. I think they're baking into their foreign policy already that America is no longer a fully reliable ally, and that is very hard to turn around from an American foreign policy perspective if there is an interest in doing it. But right now, that's the direction we're heading. So we see the results. I'm going to say one more thing. I'm sorry. On Iran, we see the results, right? Like the whole world should be involved with this war, helping us or be engaged, or they're concerned, their oil is getting hit. But we don't have any allies on this thing. Like we got a couple countries helping us on the negotiations, but basically it's us and Israel. We're on our own. Where are the Gulf Arab states? Where are the Europeans? They all should be engaged. They don't want it. They don't want part of it. And they're not coming to our defense. And Trump is angry and frustrated. But he doesn't have a positive diplomatic program to get them there.
He did it himself. When George W. Bush went to war, he built a coalition. When George Herbert Walker Bush went to war, he built a coalition first.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. They called it the coalition of the willing.
On a whim because he didn't want to talk about Jeff Epstein.
That 120%. So now you see the results of it is that once the world gets a taste of no longer being part of the alliance, they're going to continue to eat from that. They're not going to just come back.
That brings me to two questions. One, how long would it take to come back from that, do you think? Could it be done in our lifetime? And what are the consequences of said actions? Will Russia and China benefit from it, or are they still looked at as being more crazy than we are? And we're just if they have to make a choice, they'll choose the United States because at least they got Hollywood. I don't know. You tell me.
All right. So at the risk of sounding Pollyannish, and also at the risk of pissing off my Democratic partisan friends who don't want to have anything positive said about the future right now. Sorry. I mean, it can't get better is a better message for some folks. But I'm old enough and you're old enough to remember the
I'm
Iraq
young.
War. You look good, man. You look good.
You're looking good yourself, man. We're in our 20s. Go ahead.
Woo! Oh, that back and all. Other than that, I'm feeling great. I'm old enough to remember how bad the Iraq War was, and even though we set up an international coalition, it was devastating.
Yeah.
And then Barack Obama got in, and things turned around.
Yeah.
So I am always a believer that we can turn around. And this again sounds Pollyannish, but I truly believe that the world likes the United States. They like the American people. They want to. They like you saw the World Cup, and it wasn't for nothing that people came here and they were really into it. It's a cool country. This country has it all. We're diverse. We're high energy, technology, food, entertainment, the roads, the beauty. It's so interesting. So
the train sucks, but other than that,
I mean, we have our shibboleths too, but it requires leadership choosing to do that. And why is that important? Because not only is it a feel-good thing when you have alliances, it is
essential
way to. It's a pragmatic way to strengthen your foothold in the world. You advance your interests when you have allies helping support you. You don't have to do it all alone. You don't have to pay for everything. It's like going out to dinner with friends and you split the check, but you're the leader as opposed to you paying for everybody. It's opening up new markets. It's working on collective action to prevent pandemics from spreading before they get to the United States. It's so important to have a variety of allies at your disposal. Walking away from allies, being an isolationist, historically in the United States has always led to disaster, has led to war, has led to calamity. And then we realize, oh, we're dumb shits. We can't do it alone. We actually have to do it with others. But to your second question, who wins from it? Actually, nobody yet, which also gives me a little bit of hope. Maybe China gains a little foothold. Certainly in Africa, they're making inroads.
Well, they bought most of our debt.
And they own our debt. But it's not like the world is hankering for China to take them over. And China, when it goes into a country, it provides aid. Usually, it's like a mob. It's like a mob squad. They go in and they give them a 99-year lease and our 99-year loan, and basically they seize the property if the country can't take it back. I remember in Sri Lanka, the number one port in Sri Lanka, the Chinese basically gave them a huge loan for it. The Sri Lankans couldn't pay it back, and now it's Chinese property. All right. That's what they do. And the Russians, nobody wants the Russians, all that innovation, right? Great.
Yeah, they don't even have decent food. Chinese at least have better food. Who wants borscht?
So it's not as if the people there are certainly going to be overlapping interests that are going to compel other countries in our alliances to move towards the others, the Russians and the Chinese. But we have the good fortune of having really nasty adversaries out there that are not exactly appealing to many countries. But we can't take that for granted. It's not a permanent thing. It is, I think, in the book that I wrote, I talked about how Kennedy really laid a foundation for much of our success in our foreign policy. I truly believe that we are living in a really pragmatic realpolitik world when we are building our alliances to be on our team, to make us more powerful and wealthy, and live our values. So I'm an alliance kind of guy.
So then this leads me to the next question. Could Donald Trump's activities inadvertently lead to better worldwide stability if, in fact, all of our allies are more self-sufficient and don't rely on us?
Now, a broken clock can be right twice a day.
Yeah. And he is going to make, if you listen to him, he's saying our relationships have never been better. Our allies respect us more. We are doing all the right things. Now, I don't happen to believe that, but could he inadvertently lead to a more stable world?
I mean, what's so exasperating about Donald Trump is he probably is the world's luckiest man alive, right? And like, it's like he may very well just end up getting NATO to spend 5% and we pull out and they still need us, right? Like, it's quite possible that this is all going to happen and that his tactical maneuvering and banging and all this sort of like romper room foreign policy that he is advancing ends up making mom and dad who are watching the kid thrashing about feel a little happy that at a certain point maybe he figured out how to open up the door. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it's not as if the countries around the world are dismissing the United States and walking away entirely, and it's not as if we aren't sort of doing whatever the hell we want to do, even if we're failing at it all over the place. It's this weird, unknown interregnum. And what I'm trying to argue as well is we need a USG 2.0. We need to lead. We need to create stability. We need institutions to work. But we also can't go to the status quo ante, right? Like whoever comes into the White House in 2029 can't be like, oh, yeah, let's go back to the way it was under Biden when everything was great, right? Like that is not going to work.
No, we've gone beyond that.
We've gone beyond that,
yeah.
and we've got this disruptor guy and COVID and Doge, and it's breaking everything. And so he may be very well just benefiting, would be my argument, from all the smart investments of the last 5 decades by great Americans and American leaders. He's like the kid who thinks he's rich because his grandparents and his parents were really wealthy and he got the money. So now he's like really wealthy, but he's blowing
that's
it
not
all,
like
right?
him. That is him. That's exactly who he is.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Did I put my finger on it?
Yeah, I think you maybe nailed that. Yeah.
And so this cannot be a permanent state. Otherwise we're sunk. And so this is not a model for how to really lead and be strong and secure.
So your argument would be
some things could be happening now that are not so bad. This is true.
Your argument could be we may have gained some short-term benefit, but the long-term picture is frightening still. And that to me is the important part of it. But the American electorate is not very good at long-term thinking. We've seen that time and time again. In fact, we're very good at short-term thinking and, well, not really good at that. The Democrats aren't even in power right now, but Donald Trump is still trying to make you think that it's the Democrats that are responsible for the mess that we're in, that they finally admit that we're in. And they want to blame a party that's not in power for having the power to make it that way.
I was on a CNN panel earlier in the week, and we were talking about the USS Lincoln, and the Republican was like blaming Joe Biden. And I looked at her, I said, "Excuse me, just for a minute, I just want to just be clear that Donald Trump has been commander in chief for a year and a half, right? Like this is not Joe Biden."
Yeah,
but if the Democrats, if we don't put hard, good, solid ideas forward on our role in the world,
well, that's a big if.
This will be the frame that we're dealing with.
Well, as I've said, there's no one better at snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory than the Democrats.
We are very practiced in that. That is true.
Yeah, no kidding. So anyway, so let's close with this. Let me ask you this, Joel. Where do you see us 5 years from now?
So much depends upon the elections, but I do see ultimately a much more humbled American presence globally. And I see sort of smaller international institutions doing much more modest things than the aspirational goals of the UN built in 1945. And I begin to see much more firm regional spheres of influence dominating the discussion. The Americas, the Europe, and China sort of getting into their own
Does NATO
zone.
survive, and does the UN
So it's
survive?
a multipolar world. And that's the big thing for our polarity. NATO is the X factor, right? Because NATO and Russia are sort of in the same space, and Russia wants to dominate that. But NATO, they're ours in terms of the alliance. And so we need to keep NATO if we want to avoid having a multipolar world fighting with each other. But the NATO countries aren't going to be joining with Russia. So it's a real X factor. It's up for grabs. Will the United States still want to be participating with our allies in Europe as a security blanket and an economic partner or not? And if not, we could very well see greater conflict on the continent rather than less. The American specter in the background is always a major club that the Europeans can point to keep the bear from Russia from invading East. All right. So I think that's where we're heading, unless we have a more robust footprint. But Americans are getting really tired of international engagements, despite my hopes for an alternative and much more robust international. I think we're going to see a much smaller global engagement over time. But it's this X factor
That
of
does
NATO.
not benefit the United States.
No. And this is the world that Trump has wrought, but it's also a big strain in the Democratic progressive base as well. There's a real sort of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ro Khanna, kind of like, let's talk America first and only about us. And that rhetoric, to me, I find to be very divisive and short-sighted and anti-internationalist. And I'm disappointed that we're seeing that coming out from the Democratic base right now. We know better. We shouldn't be saying things like that. It's out of anger towards Israel and Gaza, but it's now becoming a broader sort of theme for the people like me who are internationalists or orientation and believe in America. We have to really, though, make the argument as to why it is in our country's benefit and everyone's personal benefit to be part of this world.
Well, all right, I'm not a Ronald Reagan fan, but I will say that he said something that I agree with, and that is, anyone can be an American. To be an American, you have to be an internationalist, because you're born a Frenchman, you're born a Russian, but anyone can be an American. And when my grandfather came over here, he didn't call himself a Lebanese American. My other grandfather didn't call himself a Jewish American. They were Americans, period. And so an international scope has always been part and parcel, part of our existence. Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. To abandon that, I think, abandons Americanism.
Put it like some business school language on it, right? Like, that's our competitive advantage. That's our niche.
Yes.
We're like the only country in the world that can truly claim that we have a global population. And it's special. And this is what bothers me about the Trump worldview towards immigration, obviously, and all, and the America First isolationism. To me, that's antithetical to the whole zeitgeist and style of the United States. We are, by our nature and our population, incredibly global. It's so unique. It's so different from the rest of the world, and it's so special. And we can't and should not walk away from it. And that would be walking away from who we are as a people. I want to add one more thing to what you said. I know I mentioned my TV hits, but I did a BBC hour-long panel, and I came out, and there was the security guard guy, and he looked at me. He's like, I saw you on TV. I'm from Ethiopia. I was in the opposition, and now I'm here. And we started talking. It's like the security guard here. He was like in the political opposition. I looked at him and I said, and now your kids are real American kids, right? And he's like, you bet. He was so proud. And, he's got these American kids running around. And it's like, it's so beautiful. He's Ethiopian. He's proud of his country. He's engaged politically. His kids are American. We have multiple layers of identities.
Dude,
it's a total blessing.
You're preaching to the choir there. When I remember my kids, when they were younger, in Gaithersburg, Maryland, are playing in the backyard. There's a Jewish kid, a Muslim kid, a Catholic kid, and three Hindus. And they're playing in the backyard, and they don't care about it. They're just kids playing. And I remember one of the mothers said, if they were in their home countries, all of these people would be warring. He said, but they're American kids, and this is America, and that's what's beautiful about America.
We have to hold on to that. that is our special sauce. That is what makes this country so amazing. We cannot walk away from that. And that means being part of the world beyond our borders as well.
Amen. Well, with that said, Joel, I'll let you plug whatever you want, my brother.
Well, I got my book out there called Saving Democratic Foreign Policy, and I'm on the briefing book. I'm on Substack, and my Substack is called The Briefing Book. I would love to have people follow me or subscribe. And Brian, you are a shining guiding light for us all. So thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it's always a pleasure, Joel, and thank you for saying that. And I didn't even pay him to do it. So with that said, this is Just Ask the Question. I am your host, Brian Karam. I really want to thank you for joining us. I found out we're ranked number 2 among White House podcasts, right under Nicole Wallace. I found that out about a week ago. So I want to thank all of our viewers and all of our listeners for
That's phenomenal.
in. Yeah. So we'll thank you, and we'll catch you next time.